What I'm about to tell you really happened, but you have to understand, many believe it did not. I will be honest with you, as I do not lie. This story is real, but you have to understand that on the evening in question, I had a lot to drink. I mean, a lot. Probably more than any other time in my life. Even more than the time I chugged half a liter of white tequila, just to prove I could do it. There are things I remember clearly about the evening in question, and others I don't. But this one event was very clear. There were 3 of us, 4 in total, including me. We had decided to get drunk and bought your standard easily packaged liquor and made our way to an old forgotten graveyard that was over 800 yards or so from the old gravel road. We had been there many times before, but only in the past, and we had never brought so much booze with us before. The graveyard is a great place to visit, always a foreboding feeling, and it makes the girls stay really close to you. It is kind of out in the middle of a field, surrounded by trees, which is what makes it odd. Nothing grows around it, but grass and your occasional wildflower here and there. Most of the stones are old, some dates on them, but others do not have them. The oldest we found dated back to 1918. The most recent that I can remember thinking about it was 1932. What is most odd is the number of stones that indicate children were buried there not over the age of 10. On this particular night, we decided and got right to drinking. We played your normal drinking games and did the normal stupid things associated with it. On this night though, we got very drunk, and rather than exit the area to do our business as we had done before, we became lazy and did this on the gravestones and graves. I was the first to pay no mind, and as I was relieving myself on a particularly inviting stone, a friend said I should stop doing that. You know, 'cause it was disrespectful. I, being drunk by then, told them to bugger off and that dead people should have more important things to worry about or consider. After a short while, it seemed that all except the girls agreed with me and did their business in the same way. I have to admit, looking back, I had not been so drunk, I had never would have done this kind of thing. Not because I would have been worried of anything happening, but because, looking back, it was disrespectful. Later that evening, I was propped up against a stone, and Natasha, one of the girls I had come with, was by my side as I peered through the slits in my eyes at the others and the fire we had built. They were laughing, jumping over the fire, and doing stupid things and the like. Jim, one of my best mates, looked in my direction, and I thought he was going to say something. Instead, his face turned to horror, and he started screaming, "Oh my God, what the fuck is that?" over and over. He backed into the fire about a 3rd time. He said this and tripped and fell into it. It was not a large fire, but his shirt instantly ignited, maybe because he had spilt some of the booze on it. I jumped up at this time, somewhat freaked out that he had been screaming to help him up and put out the flames. As I moved closer, he rolled out of the fire saying, "Oh my God, get it away from me, get it away." The others asked, "Jim, what are you talking about, get it away?" And to this, he only started crying and blubbering. As I attempted to get him off the ground, the others who were doing the same mentioned it was getting very cold. They could not believe how cold it was. I asked them what they were talking about, because it was just as warm as it had been, when a silence fell over my friends. Bob, who was there first, said in a timid voice, Did you hear that?" Stuttering, I looked at him and said, "What?" His face grew ashen. My friend, who was holding Jim up, let go and dropped him. For a second, as if slow motion, everyone paused, and then they all took off on the road, screaming and hollering. Natasha, who had been behind me, started screaming, "Don't leave me!" And some of the others screamed back as they ran, "Run! Oh my God, run!" And so she began to, but as she got closer to me, I was still standing there now, believing they were playing a joke, and she started blubbering. "Oh God, Jim, don't let it hurt me. Please, please, please don't let it hurt me." As Jim slowly stood up, I looked into her eyes with a smile, trying to tell her the joke was up, but as I looked at her, I saw a face full of fear that alone scared me as well. I choked out, "What's wrong?" just in time to hear the most blood-curdling scream I have ever heard. She rushed past me, reaching for Jim's hand, and as she took it, she tripped over my leg, making me lose my balance. I would not have normally done this, except for the fact I was very pissed. I stumbled back, and to this day, I do not know what I tripped on. All I remember is falling backward, and everything going completely black. I awoke the next morning, face down in a ditch, halfway between there and my home. As I stirred, I heard laughter and thought that someone was standing over me. I could barely think and felt like puking. As I stood up, I remember that my clothes were wet and that I smelled of urine. I thought of, great, I urinated on myself while I was passed out. However, upon closer inspection, I was soaked from head to toe with it. I looked around to see who was laughing and believing the same person had probably relieved themselves on me. I saw no one around. I began walking the rest of the way home, and when I got there, after hosing myself off, I called Natasha and asked her what happened the night before. She asked what I was talking about, and I told her what happened. She said no one had gone to the graveyard in over 2 weeks, and had certainly not gone the night before. To this day, I don't even know how to conceive this, or what actually happened that night, or if it actually happened. The 320 Walker. Minnesota nights can be breathtakingly cold, and are normally so dark, you can't see 10 feet in front of you. But when the moon is able to sneak out from behind the winter clouds, its reflection glistens off the snow-covered ground and lights pathways deep into the forest. I grew up along a beautiful lake in a country setting. It was serene and a beautiful place to make childhood memories. However, the house that we lived in had its eccentricities. One particular late-night winter proved that our family was not living in the house. After a couple hours of evening television, our family retired to our separate bedrooms. My brother to his at the end of the hallway, my parents and baby sister to the master and me, the first room off the dining room. It had been a long day, and I was exhausted. As normal, I left my bedroom door open, just a crack, so that my small dog could enter it if he needed to, undetected, and snuggle up for the night. I turned down the bedspread and jumped into my bed, falling asleep immediately. Oddly, I was awakened in the middle of the night. I was not in a daze, as if just coming out of a dream. Rather, I was alert immediately. I glanced at the clock on the dresser, which was glowing 3:20 a.m. in its digital red numbers. The moonlight was filtering through the night. Then I heard a noise in my basement, below my bedroom. It was a familiar noise, but strange at the same time. The basement was not carpeted, but had a full apartment, which used to house the previous owner's son. The apartment was separated from the downstairs laundry by a large, solid wood pocket door, which was always kept open while we lived in the house. The pocket door had been installed many years before on a sturdy metal track, which had a distinct rolling sound as the door was opened or closed. This is the noise I heard. I wasn't immediately alarmed by the noise in the basement. My mom had been known to wake up early to do laundry before I was old enough to help. So I listened for a moment, closing my eyes and wanting to go back to sleep. It wasn't until I heard the footsteps on the wooden stairs leading from the basement to the kitchen that I knew this was not my mom. My heart started to race. I listened more intently to the heavy, methodical steps being taken by the intruder as they came closer to the landing in the kitchen at the top of the stairs. The footsteps did not stop at the top of the stairs. They continued across the kitchen in the same rhythm. The sound was eerie and is still vivid in my memory today, 30 years later. They didn't get any louder as they crossed, as I expected they should if the intruder was coming toward my room. All of a sudden, they stopped. Oh my God, the intruder was on the carpet. I yanked my bedding over my head, expecting the worst, barely breathing from the fear that I was to be discovered. I laid there stiffly so that I wouldn't move. There was nothing. My door didn't swing open. No more footsteps, no voices. It seemed like a lifetime, but I gradually dozed off. At the breakfast table the next morning, I nonchalantly asked my mom if she had been up wandering around the previous night. To my amazement, she screamed and started crying. She asked what time. I told her. Through her tears, she said she heard the exact same thing for the past 4 nights at the exact same time. To this day, we have no idea what or who it was, but we didn't hear it again after that conversation. The abandoned mine in the Mendenhall Valley. Most of the paranormal encounters I've shared have occurred in my home. This one, however, took place miles from my home, and only I was the witness. I live in the Mendenhall Valley in Juneau, and the high school I attended is downtown, so it's quite a ride just to get to school and back. Sometimes, my family and I go for a car trip and just drive around downtown out of sheer boredom. On this occasion, it was my parents' anniversary, and my dad wanted to show my mom this neat trail he'd noticed while at work. We all got in the car, me, my brother, and our parents, and drove downtown. The trail leads up one of the mountainsides, and the hike, if you can go all the way, takes about a day. We decided to just walk up the trail to the old entrance to one of the mines that are scattered around here. All of these mines are closed down, and have been for decades. Because of this, they are dusty and dark and just plain creepy. Anyway, once we got to the old mine, outside, there was this little exhibit that showed some of the old tools used in the mines. My parents and brother were checking that out while I wandered around aimlessly. I seemed to have a short attention span. I started kicking this rock around, and it happened to land inside the mine. I followed it, and then I realized where I was. There was this rusted gate that had the sign, "Closed, do not enter," and stuff like that. About 10 feet or so past the gate was this really big pile of rocks that sealed off the rest of the shaft. I'd assumed that this was one of the many mines that had caved in. It was mild afternoon, so when I started to get a chill, I noticed almost right away. The underground wind shifted direction, and instead of blowing towards me, it started to pull me closer to the gate. Inside, I could suddenly see 4 or 5 men dressed in these dirty white shirts and jeans with suspenders. They all had a pick on their shoulder, and they stopped walking as they seemed to notice me watching them. They had no eyes, just these black, empty holes, and I couldn't move. I was suddenly overcome with this feeling of absolute despair and fear. Simultaneously, the men stretched out their free hands and pointed their fingers at me, almost as if they were accusing me of something. Next thing I knew, my mom had a hold of me and was shaking me and yelling, "Tiffany, Tiffany, what's wrong? What happened?" I realized that I was out of the covered entrance to the mine, and I wasn't feeling quite so despairing. I answered my mom with, "I'm fine," or something to that effect. Apparently, while I was watching the men, my parents and brother had started to hike back down to the car. My mom noticed that I wasn't with them and went back to find me. Once she got back to the mine entrance, she heard me making this horrible noise. She told me that she ran and grabbed me, saying that I was deathly white and staring at something that wasn't there, and saying over and over, "I didn't do it. I didn't do it." She pulled me away from the mine, and then I was fine. I don't even remember anything past seeing the men pointing at me, and I told her what I saw, but she didn't see the men and thought that I'd just had an episode or something. I forgot about it and didn't really think of it much. This happened in the middle of the day, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were nowhere near the river or our house. The more I thought about what I'd seen, the more I realized that those men must have died when the mine caved in. Why they accused me of it, I don't know, but I haven't gone there since. At least, not that far up the trail. The lower half is used as an outside run for gym class, and whenever I go on that trail, the spot behind my right ear starts to hurt, and it gets worse and worse until I almost can't stand it. Anyone have any insight into why I might be feeling that? Any input would be welcome. Hey guys, thank you so much for getting to the end of this video. If you're like me, you love horror stories, and you want to hear narrations, please subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate it. Comment, like, share, because I'm getting so close to 1,000 subs, and I would really appreciate it. You guys are amazing. I want all our phantoms to unite and, get to this goal. So thank you so much in advance for everybody who's supported me. Seriously, guys, I cannot thank you enough. I sound like a broken record. I continuously, invite you guys to submit, comment, like, whatnot. But, like I said, it's really important to me, and I love you guys. So thank you so much, and Phantom is signing out.